Welcome back to the channel. Today I have a pair of binoculars sent out to the channel by Redline Optics. These are like a field use style binoculars. They're 8x25. They are a roof prism, and the F4F Wildcat has a cool story which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a second. This does come with a 6.8 degree and 356 foot field of view, IPX6 waterproof rating, 7 lens construction. It's nitrogen purged. It has a multi-layer polycarbonate armor plated casing, and that's one of the things that helps it be waterproof. Okay, it has multi-coated roof prisms, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit, or quite a bit actually, about the prisms in a little while. I really enjoyed this. It was a fun pair of binoculars to use, and what I intend to do in this review is just to kind of show you how I was using them, and then I'll be out on the range, I'll be out hiking in a couple different locations telling you about them, and then from there I will close out with my thoughts on how do these work, who's going to get the most out of these, who are they designed for, and what else you should keep an eye out for coming from Redline Optics. When it comes to optics, I think spotting scopes can be very versatile. There's a lot you can do with them. You can get a strap on them and carry them around, and depending on your application, this might be the right tool, but it's not always the right tool for the job. Sometimes this footprint is too big, sometimes the magnification is too big, sometimes you need a more immersive field of view, and this is not going to do the trick. In that case, binoculars can be the option, and sometimes with binoculars, there's still too much magnification in a pair of 10Xs or 12Xs. Occasionally, that's too much for the application, and lesser power is needed and a smaller footprint is needed. So right here I have the F4 Wildcats from Redline Optics, and this package, I'm going to go ahead and open it up, show you what's inside the box if you order one of these, and just show you a little comparison between a big old spotter, which has its place, and then a pair of binoculars, which also has its. As you can see here, the package is pretty small. This is not a huge pair of binoculars. These are nice and compact. The F4F Wildcats are kind of like a light field type binocular, something easy to transport. Now when you open it up, it's going to be packaged. I've already opened my package a little bit. You're going to have a decal in there, so there is a picture kind of decal window thing if you want to do something with that, advertise the brand. You're going to have your instruction manual. One of the things inside the package is this tribute card about the F4F Wildcat. There's a story about a guy this is dedicated to, an American hero, crazy dogfight story about being outnumbered, and yeah, true American hero. Go ahead and read that. Very, very cool story. You're going to have your lens cloth. You have your optic, and I've already taken this out a little bit. I've been using it obviously for a while. And then a neck lanyard, which I have not been using yet. I will take it out because I do want that to be part of the review. So the neck lanyard does look like it's got a neoprene feel. Looks comfortable. I don't feel any scratchy parts. Sometimes they, not this brand, but other brands have used like a Cordura fabric, and it's just not comfortable. And sometimes the sewing itself is not comfortable. This doesn't appear to have any rough edges or any sharp threads, rough materials, but it is sewn in, looks like pretty well. And here is the pair of binoculars and the case that you're going to get with this. This is a magnetic flap closure. Okay, so this has been really easy to throw in a pocket, even for me, a side pocket, a cargo pocket, or in a backpack. And I find that the cover is nice because I do want to protect the lenses and the glass in general, and I might be going in and out of weeds and I don't want to scratch things up too much. So this magnetic closure is nice, but it's a very simple package. It just opens up like this, and then this is retained with some stretchy fabric inside. So a very simple sheath and cover, but it definitely does the trick. It does not have a belt loop on the back because, again, this is kind of a field pack, so it's easy enough just to throw into a small pouch or a pocket. And if you didn't want to do that, these are small enough to just fit in your pocket by themselves. Absolutely they are. It's really, really tiny if you wanted to keep them condensed like this. If you want to use the lanyard, all right, pause for a second. I made a mistake. When I was first looking at the strap and the way that this hooks up, I wasn't looking closely enough to the really obvious information out there. You know, first of all, you should always take a look at a manual if you can't figure something out, or at least access the resources that are available to you. And I went on the Redline YouTube and I found out really quickly the proper way to strap this up. So at first I wasn't 100% sure how these could be integrated together, because I knew that the binoculars themselves had these loops right here for pass-through. And I figured that it was initially just supposed to be pass-through for this, and I was kind of monkeying around with that a little bit and doing some goofy stuff. I'm not always the sharpest, actually, guys. And then I'm, looking at this case, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's got the loops here, so there's a way they're going to integrate together. Well, it actually makes a lot of sense. So I just want to take you through both of those things really quickly, because it's very simple, and there's a way that you can keep this integral to the case and use them. It's not going to get in your way, and have the neoprene neck strap all on at the same time. So it's really a package and a system that makes a lot of sense, especially for protecting this, walking through the woods, a hunting scenario, a time where you don't want to have to use your hands. You want to put it down and pull on a bow, or put up a rifle, and you don't want to have to try to find a place to set this down. The system makes a lot of sense, guys, and I need to show you how these hook up together in case you're like me and you didn't look it up. All right, now here's the part that might have confused one or two people, and I'm going to be honest with you, at first I was confused too. I did not reference the manual, I didn't look online. There's all these online resources for things like this, and Redline themselves on their YouTube has a demonstration of how you could do this. There's two ways to hook this up to your field case or your quick draw case here. And I'm going to just show you one method, the way that I've chosen to set this one up. So in your quick draw case, there are two tabs or eyelets here. And the first thing you need to do is just open up the eyelet. Okay, and then I'm going to feed through the eyelet with one end. And this is the way I'm setting it up. It's just a little different than the way that some other people will set it up. Depends what you want to do with your leftover cordage and the way that you want to set up that lanyard. Now I'm going down through the binocular loop, okay? And I haven't installed it under the elastic yet. Now that I'm through, I'm actually going to move my slider much closer, because I'm okay with having a little bit of slack in this. And I'm going to go underneath on the exterior side, but you actually could have gone, instead of going straight down and in, you could have gone around and then back up, and you could lace it backwards through this loop and keep your tail on the interior side of the lanyard. A lot of people are going to prefer to do that. I believe that's the way that Redline Optics has demonstrated online how to do that. I'm going to just do it this way. I guess I'm just obstinate. I think it's a good way to do it as well. Both ways have worked well for me in carrying it, and it didn't loosen up, didn't drop it, didn't have any issues like that, because the slider is doing the job well. So I'm just going to tighten it up and just show you that that is good and strong now. And I don't mind having my tail out on this side, but if you didn't want this to be exterior, then you would loop it around and go up from the eyelet on the binocular. And obviously I'm going to do that on both sides, and then install it underneath the elastic band here, like so. And it's going to be retained nicely inside the package. And I can actually wear this case, which is a good deal. I can wear the case and then just quickly open up the magnetic flaps, and I can use the binoculars without ever losing this, without ever looking for a place to set this down. It's field expedient, and it's actually a really nice design for a light pair of binoculars like this, I think. I'm sorry for filming this way, guys, inside especially. It's an outdoors product. It deserves to be reviewed outdoors, and my studio I'm still working on. And so I want to tell you this. If I had known about the design and understood that earlier, I would have had a lot more footage of me using it as a system. I think this makes a lot of sense. I could cinch it up a little bit more if I wanted to, but for me on a lanyard style like this with this neoprene neck cover, this is about the length I want it to be at, just for comfort, whether I'm in a stand or I'm sitting watching a sporting event or something. About here is good for me. I don't want it to interfere with my rifle or drawing a bow. I can wear, a fixed chest pack like this. Those don't bother me at all. But just for this type I think this is about where I want it to be. It's just keeping it away from my face a little bit if I am running or jogging as well. So this makes a lot of sense when you lace it together the right way. This flap comes off and it's a very quick access. I can actually focus across the room, which is impressive. So this is a good idea. I think the case makes more and more sense the more I see how this would work for someone. And just using it like this the last couple days since I figured out the right way to lace this up, this whole system is a good system, and I think I would lean more towards keeping the strap on. In the review, you're going to see that I mostly did not, and that works fine too. It's just that this isn't really limiting it from operating the way that I would want it to operate anyways. I could wrap it up and still put it in a pack in the same pocket of my sweater or my backpack. This strap is not going to take up that much extra space. So just keeping it together as a system, very quickly accessing, and I'm right back to protecting the lenses, and the whole package does not get in the way. I like these a lot. I've got one target here at 50 yards, 100 yards, and then a little over 200 yards. Let's see, go to the focus. It's definitely, yeah, the fine focus is definitely doing something for me there. And then I go to the large focus, and I can get a pretty tight image. Colors look good considering that the sun is behind the trees. It is a little darker out, which is a good test of glass. And the center of the binocular, the center image, I'll address the edges in a second, but the center of the image looks good there at 50, and I'll go to 100 yards. Wow, that's actually a halfway decent image, considering how dark it is. I'm gonna get that fine focus, get it set up for my eye. There we go. Yeah, that looks really good. Now, what I'm doing here when I'm going back and forth quickly is I'm making sure that the mechanical device is doing the focusing and not my eye. I don't want my eye to use its muscles to try to correct the image and tighten it up. I want this to be set in such a way that when I put it up to my eye each time, I'm getting the clearest image that I can, and then just messing with my large dial focus here, which I think I'm good to go now. You know, at 100 yards, I can pick out bullet impacts, 22 bullet impacts. And it's pretty light, or it's pretty dark out right now. Hopefully you can tell the sun hasn't gone down. I got a blue sky behind me, but it is not bright out. I don't have the sun at my back to help me see those impacts. Yep, I can differentiate between the 6mm holes and the 22. Not bad for an 8-power optic. Not at all. The spread and the splay of these feels pretty comfortable. The tension to retain it there seems pretty good. Go ahead and tighten this up for a second. Oops. Okay. Yeah, right there. That's pretty comfortable. I'm not sure if I have a wide face or not. I mean, you can tell me if I have a wide face or not. I think I'm kind of normal. When I wear glasses, I don't have difficulty with my eyes being far apart or too narrow. And so it fits my face just fine. If you did have a really, really wide face, I actually think that's enough space to get most people, unless you're just an enormous person, with a really wide set of eyes. And that is a thing. Sometimes people have perhaps a lazy muscle in their eye, and the way that it works, it just sets things off a little different. But as far as I can tell, you could have your eyes quite a bit further apart and much more narrow. Yeah, much more narrow. And this would work just fine for you. That's one of the flexibilities and benefits of having something like this that can bridge well. Okay. Yeah, I'm liking that image at 100 yards. I'm liking color in the center of the glass. Clarity and color fidelity seems to be decent. Got some critters running around me. I should try to film a little bit through this at some point tonight. I'm going to go to 200 yards. It's a little past. It's probably 230 from here. Man, one thing I really like about using an 8X pair of binoculars is just the ability to get an enormous field of view with such a tiny package. And I am, blowing up an image that I can't see with my naked eye very well at all. I can't distinguish between items down there. My vision isn't the best either. But I pop those up, and I've got a really, really nice magnification, nice center of the glass, good color, good detail. Depth of field, I'm kind of going back and forth here. Depth of field is not too bad. All right, I understand that it's darker out. It's going to be darker in the image. Even my software can't keep up with this. I know the sky is blue, and that's because the sun is still beyond the horizon there, but it's not up. The sun has gone down. It's 1 minute to sundown, so I can't see it anymore. It's behind the trees. And the reason I like to do a little bit of testing like this, I've got 325 yards this way, I've got 700 yards this way, and then I've got a lot of shadows and dark spots, brown grass, brown leaves. It's the fall. I want to do testing like this because that's a true test of glass. And I understand, this is an under $200 pair of 8Xs. And I'm not going to compare it against a $1,000 8X. But I want to know, with color and contrast and detail, can I see the difference between, a brown grass, a brown tree, and maybe a brown deer at 300 yards? Can I see how many points a deer has? Is 8X enough for that? For me, a nice field pair of binoculars, I think it should be. At this distance, I should be able to pick out some detail if I'm steady. But then the color is probably the biggest part, because a lot of times when I'm taking shots on critters, or I'm trying to distinguish between deer, I need my binoculars that are in my pocket to be able to kind of do the task at some distance as I'm seeing deer come in. I probably won't take a shot at this distance where I hunt, but I want to know as it's coming in, which deer am I preparing for, which one do I want to keep my eyes on. And if I have a pair of binoculars that can't distinguish, if the color fidelity is not good, there's not enough contrast, and I'm not getting detail, I might just see blobs of deer kind of coming in and not actually get that, really eye-pleasing detail. So I'm going to go ahead and shut up and look at 325 yards here between a few different colors and see what kind of detail I can pick out. Now I have two white silhouettes actually, and then I have a 4-inch and a 6-inch target down there. And on the 6-inch, I can pick out individual bullet impacts on the 6-inch, and we are very low light right now. The depth of focus is good. I'm looking at, about 280 yards, and then I'm looking at 325, and then I'm looking at 350 yards. And it's all pretty decently in focus to some degree. But as far as the sharp focus, I've got it set right about 325, and I can pick up those individual impacts. When I move to my silhouettes, I've got a 2/3 and a full-size IPSC at 325. I can easily, because those are big and they are white on the back, but I can easily pick out 22 hits and distinguish them from, 6.5 Creedmoor hits. Looking at clay pigeons here at 325, I can see clay pigeons that have been struck and ones that are just, maybe half a corner has been torn off as it was shot. I can see little pieces and bits. And I'm looking into shadows, guys. I'm looking kind of like into the target pits where we put clay pigeons sometimes, and I can see those little itty bitty pieces of the clay pigeons. I can see rocks, I can see detail, and it's in a kind of a shallow spot, so the sun is not making it there. It's a shadow, and that's a good sign. If this can pick up detail, and I can see into those shadows and distinguish between rocks, that tells me that this is doing the job I would need it to in a field use scenario especially. I can see birds flying around down there. Can almost kind of tell what kind of birds they are. All right, I'm going to flip around now, and I'm going to look at 700 yards. So I'm just kind of steadying myself off my knees. I don't really have a bag or a ruck or anything that I would normally put under my knees, and then I would support my elbows into, kind of bone structure like in shooting. I don't have any of that, so I'm just kind of getting myself as braced as I can. And because they're 8X, they do a really nice job of having a wide field of view, and I'm not so shaky that, or it doesn't perceive that I'm so shaky that I'm like missing targets, or it's hard for me to see something and then put up the glass. You know, with a really high meg pair of binoculars, if I saw something and I put my eyes up, it might take me a while because of lack of field of view to find that target. But with something like this, a field pair of binoculars, I can see a target. I got one there at, let's see, from here, it's 200 yards away from me. And I can quickly find it, get it in focus, and see detail. All right, let's move out to 800 yards. So at 800 yards, I have some pine trees, and I can distinguish branches at 800 yards on the pine trees. These are small pine trees, by the way. And now I'm really looking into shadow, guys. I'm looking into a spot where the sun is not getting at all. It's very, very dark. The sun is gone. And I can still pick out the numbers that are 700 yards away from me here. Definitely dark, but the contrast is there. Oh, there's some ducks. Okay. There's something to look at. Well, here's an example of something. I'm looking 700 yards away with a pair of 8Xs past sundown, and I just spotted ducks pretty quickly with a pair of binoculars, man. These are small. At 700 yards, yeah, and I can tell that they're ducks. I can tell a little bit because I know what ducks walk like and stuff. But I could tell the difference between those ducks and geese, that's for sure. And that's in the shadow. I was somebody who, for a long time, kind of fell into the fallacy that higher magnification always yielded better results for what I wanted to do. That's not true. And I think especially in a hunting scenario, I'm learning more and more that 8X, 10X, 12X, somewhere in that range is usually the best range for me. I'm not hunting in Colorado. I'm not taking 600 or even, 300 yard shots on deer. They're usually very close. But if you're glassing hills, kind of like what I'm doing right now, you probably don't need as much magnification as you think you do. And the more magnification that you have, the darker the image might get. It's possible that the image will get darker. It depends how much you want to spend for that. They're going to get heavier. The barrels are generally bigger on those heavier magnification optics. And then on top of that, shakiness. So it's like you need a second tripod now to mount your binoculars and take a look. And so that is all something you would have to weigh. But for me, just what I'm doing here, if I was just truly trying to spot or pick out details or see animals coming, differentiate between things, or maybe see where my hunting party is, absolutely. I can, there's a vehicle driving down there, and I can pick out parts of the vehicle pretty well. Color trueness is decent. It's not perfect. I'm not going to pretend like it is, as I'm going back and forth here a little bit. Edges of the glass, some minor distortion at the very, very edge. Okay, at the very, very edge. Just being totally honest and transparent. Yep, I'm picking up distortion at the very, very edge. A place where generally, with binoculars especially, you're not going to be looking. That's the truth. Not much at all. With a scope, that matters more to me if the edges of the glass are really, really true, because, oh, got a buck. Oh, I got to find a way to record this. Holy crap. Oh, dang. I got people hunting all over around me right now. I got to flip this camera around. All right, I'm sorry. I'm going to try to pick up this buck. I don't have gear with me to be recording through this. Shoot, where did he go? Man, did I just miss an opportunity. I wish I had a tripod set up and I could just show you somehow the detail. I had a buck there at 200 yards, and so here's what I did in real time. I put up the binoculars and I looked and I counted for spots, and I could tell the buck, it was like an 8-pointer. I feel pretty strong that it was an 8-pointer. Had a lot of confidence in that. With that, I could tell how far apart the spread was, how tall the tines were here at 200 yards, just using an 8X. It was moving slow for a little bit, and then I think it picked up. And I was talking a little loud, and it started moving that direction, and there's a hunter right over there, so I should probably maybe move. Anyways, this pair of binoculars, when it comes to, oh, he's coming back. Geez, this is a fun review. I don't usually get to have so many animals. I had a lot of animals around me today. It was really nice to have these with, because I got a really good look at a lot of deer today. Yeah, it's not going to work for me to flip this around. I don't have the right hardware with me right now. I'll try to do it in a further review later. But anyways, I think I had originally, before I got all excited there, started getting buck fever, I think I had originally mentioned that color was pretty good. It's not perfect. And I especially noticed around the edges, a lack of contrast, a little bit of smearing, smudging. There was some chromatic aberration earlier today around the edges, but with a scope, that matters to me more. It matters much, much less with a pair of binoculars, because my eye is not needing a reticle. I'm not holding at the bottom of a reticle, and I'm usually just putting it up and looking right through the center at the best piece of the glass. And so here, several minutes past sundown, I got a really nice view of a buck right here. Let's see. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's an 8-pointer. Dang, man. I don't have a tag. That's a nice deer, and this would be a really nice shot. Oh my gosh. Well, I can tell you that if I was hunting and I did have a tag, this would have been the tool I had with me, and it would have done a great job to spot that, see it, get confirmation of what I wanted to for detail. And I'm looking against a brown grass, brown trees, and I could pick out both the deer, the size. When he's quartering away from me, I could still see his rack, and I could count out the tines and kind of get a guess at how tall they were. Not the biggest tines, but they were decent. And he's heading out. He's heading away from me now. Even into the thicket. Okay, I'm watching him go into the thicket. And I can see him still moving in the woods. Into that heavy brush. I can still see him moving around out there. So that's really good. Good contrast. I think I'm pretty pleased with the performance so far. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and give you my closing thoughts here on these binoculars. What are they good for? What are they best for? And then how I'll be using them in the future. All right, let's start off with just a minor amount of education, even though I'm not an optics expert to the degree of being like an optics scientist or anything. I just wanna give you some education here. So these are roof prism binoculars. And so roof prism binoculars, the prisms overlap pretty closely, and it allows the objective lenses to line up directly with the eyepieces, and that's how you get that smaller, more streamlined, compact build. They're often a little bit more lightweight too because of that, at least compared to the equivalent Poro Prism models. With roof prism binoculars, sometimes they could be more difficult to manufacture because they're just a little bit more complicated. It can cost a little more as you get to better and better glass and prisms and lenses, all that kind of thing. The roof prisms are slightly different than Poro prisms. Sometimes reflections can be a difference there. I didn't have significant issues with that here. A disadvantage would be if you were needing them at really, really low light conditions, like almost like nighttime kind of things. People who do astronomical viewing or look at planets, stars, those kind of things in the sky, that's not what these are designed for. And you would need heavier mag anyways for something like that. If you're just doing terrestrial stuff, daytime stuff, looking around, birding, competition, spotting, hunting especially, up to those closing hours and minutes of sunlight, then a well-made roof prism binoculars can provide, I think, optical performance that's nearly equal to, maybe not better, but it's nearly equal to Poro prisms. The cool thing about Poro prisms is because they're a little bit more offset, they really take advantage of that almost like three-dimensional feel that you'll get. It's that feeling of being really immersive in your field of view, and so these might be a little bit more straight on, and you might not get quite as much of an effect for that, but these are purpose built. They're not just for the pleasing image of the eye only, it's not just for the beauty of what you're taking in, and you may not be recording through something as small as an 8x set of field binoculars like this. Now I did, just for the sake of this review and what you're watching right now. Let's see, that house is at 600, yeah, it's about 600 yards. The field is like 345, and then the water, the edge of the water that you're looking at right there is 200 yards. And then the bushes just to the right, with a little bit of pine tree that you can see just to the right, that is 45 yards from where I was standing right there. And as you can see, I was kind of testing depth of field. I was looking at color and trueness, and I got a really nice image. And I'm just going to tell you guys the difference between this design, the intentionality. I don't care that this isn't a Poro prism, and in fact, a lot of the modern, really nice binoculars are roof prisms, and they can be more expensive to build that way because it does get it sleek and small in design. But for me, I'm looking at these as more of a backup, something I'm going to keep in my car, in my bag, definitely hunting. You know, I don't want to go out with a big bulky backpack and I'm hunting ever. I really don't. I want something smaller, and I hunt in more woodsy areas. Even this 600-yard shot that I'm attempting to focus here, right here to that house, I don't have shots that far where I go hunting for most animals. And so even down to small game, I could spot pretty small critters with this at a couple hundred yards, and I don't need a brighter image or a bigger image most of the time, because I'm going to be doing a lot of daytime stuff and maybe right up to those minutes of sundown, and I'm just not bothered by the roof prism design. Another thing about roof prisms, like I said, they're a little bit more complicated than a Poro prism, but it's like because of angles and the way that the light has to go out. But modern manufacturing can do it reliably. There was an old belief that somehow roof prisms were less reliable or not as consistent, and as long as they're not out of collimation, they're going to be great. They're going to be fine. Not to mention nowadays, when we talk about color, you have phase coating, and phase coating gets the light, essentially, like the simple way of saying it is phase coating helps get the light transferred to your eye properly, and phase coating helps remove color issues. If you have like extreme color fringing with some of your old binoculars, this is not going to be like that. In fact, this reminded me, because I had an old pair of, I think they were 6 or 7Xs from years and years ago, and they were absolutely terrible. I'm going to be honest with you. The old ones were terrible, and they probably cost a lot more than what you're looking at right here. This modern trend of really good glass and binoculars, considering what you're paying for, this is under $200. I think this would be a great time in hunting or in spotting. If you're just looking at getting your first pair of field binoculars and you want to mess around with some stuff, maybe something for around the house even, this is a really good time to get into glass, guys. It's very, very affordable, and I think Redline has put together a nice package here. I'm actually quite interested to see what else they have coming down the line. I'm suspicious that there might be some more coming. I've looked at their product lines, I've looked at their rifle scopes, which I'm very interested in, kind of their premier 5-30 rifle scope. I would really like to get that into the channel, and we'll see if that comes in the future. Do a little bit of testing with that. But these are going to accompany me. They're going to be in my car. They're going to be with me in my bag. I have a regulars bag that I have in my vehicle at all times, and it's a really nice immersive field of view, especially when you compare it to kind of the flat, less three-dimensional feeling field of view that you're going to get from a monocular. I like this a lot better, and I just found that the color and the brightness to be, pretty competitive with the other ones out there. And so this review is getting way too long. It's just because I've really enjoyed it. Thank you to Redline for sending this out to the channel. If you found this interesting, maybe go ahead and like and subscribe, maybe share. I would appreciate all that. And let me know down in the comments if you have one of these, what your experience was, or if you want me to review something else from Redline before pulling the trigger on it yourself. Go ahead and comment that down below, and I'll see what I can do. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.